every single day this week. And then I have next
Yeah, 7 o'clock
tomorrow,
on my,
Thursday.
Okay,
by 8.
I'll call the Londonderry Planning Board meeting to order for June 8th, 2011.
And then I have graduation
Just
Friday.
point out for everyone's information, if we have an emergency, need to evacuate, this room has two exits. They're on the right-hand side of the audience, the front and the back of the room. If we do need to evacuate, we ask you to proceed through the exit closest to you, go outside, move away from the building, don't come back until our fire officials have instructed everyone to do so. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise for pledge allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see, Laura is absent tonight, so I'm going to appoint Dana to vote for Laura. And Mary hasn't arrived yet, so I'll vote.
She'll be here. She was at the CIP meeting earlier.
Okay, yeah, I knew she'd be coming anyway. I'll appoint Letha to vote for Mary till Mary arrives. And we have a full complement of 9 voting members. And we'll proceed to our agenda. This being the second Wednesday of the month, we'll do our administrative board work first. We get our business done. And the second part of the meeting, we have our public hearings, workshops, and conceptual discussions. Hey, Mary.
Yeah.
We just started. So, we'll go to administrative board work. We have plans to re-sign Young subdivision. This was rejected and
There's no motion needed. The applicant has redrawn the plans. The issue with this particular plan, this was a project that goes back a number of years. It was actually a hand-drawn plan that had some issues at the registry. It's been redrawn electronically by the new surveyor, and we have those here for tonight for the chair and the secretary.
Okay. We'll have to remember, Chuck, to get it signed. Tim will remind us anyway. Next item we have is regional impact determinations.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your packet, you'll find a memo dated tonight. We have one subdivision for which we need a determination on regional impact. This is for Evans Family Limited Partnership. This is a 2-lot subdivision proposed on the large industrially zoned property known as MAP 17, Lot 45. And staff recommends that the project be determined not to be a regional impact as it does not meet any of the guidelines for the Regional Planning Commission.
Okay. I'll take a motion for...
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Dana, second by Rick. It's not a regional impact. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair was affirmative, and there's not a regional impact as determined by the planning board with the help of staff. Next item is Comcast Cable. They have a battery shed proposal.
Thank you,
Tax
Mr.
map
Chair.
2, lot 34-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, in your packet, you'll find a letter from Joseph Teresi from Macom Construction Services, as well as a set of plans. What Comcast is looking to do is a 12 by 12 by 9 concrete battery shed next to the existing structure, 2 to 4 feet from the Phase 2 building and 10 feet behind the existing Phase 1 building. They would be installing and cast-in-place concrete pad for the above-referenced structure. The batteries and cable, they would install the owner-supplied batteries and cable to the existing facility, air conditioning power, supply and ventilation system. The next sheet that I can call up is actually the plan as to where this is proposed. The existing facility is here. They had an addition that was approved by the board a couple of years ago. They have a future addition located here, and this is the location for the proposed battery shed. The question before the board is whether or not you wish to have this come through for a site plan review, or if you're comfortable with staff handling this administratively.
Board?
I'm comfortable with staff.
Yep.
We don't want to do
Well,
it.
here, I think it is more administratively, better administratively handled.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Get back to go here. Next, we have discussions with town staff. I'll start with Andre.
Just one item I have. Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission made our office aware of a community planning grant called the Heart and Soul Grant, put out by the Orton Family Foundation. And what it does is it's almost a supplement or a process that can be utilized with your master plan update to identify, actually, it has 5 components, 5 core elements to the Heart and Soul planning project. One happens to be broad community engagement. 2 is identify shared community values. 3, using values to drive decision-making. D, realization of the vision that includes but is not limited to the update of plans, policy, and bylaws. And 5, the plan is to continue the work beyond the foundation's involvement, meaning that after the master plan process and this process is done, that this carries over to, obviously, the decision-making, the bylaws, the ordinances that are developed as a result of this effort. And sharing this with the chairman as well as the town manager, obviously, and staff, we thought that given that we're at the onset of our beginning stages of our master plan development, this might not be a bad program to be part of, because it sounds like it digs a little bit deeper into establishing one's community's vision, but also establishing the vision based on the values that come out as a result of this process. So, as I shared with Art, I said the upside is that I think we have the components to be successful in establishing this, in getting this grant. They're looking for 2 communities in the Northeast and 2 communities in the Northwest. And given one, we have money appropriated for our master plan update, which can be used as our match towards this project. And 2, we're at the beginning stages. We haven't started anything yet that would lend them to think that we've already gone down the road, established our vision, and we just want to put this on top. So, and looking at that, so the upside is that I think it's we're at the beginning stage. The downside is that there would be like a 4 to 6 month delay, because obviously you got to submit the grant, and they award the grant around November. Around November for a December, January start. So, but in the interim, I don't think that the advisory committee that's been established, or steering committee that's been established for the master plan, it has to sit idly. I think there's things that we can be doing in preparation if we're successful with this grant. Even if we're unsuccessful in getting the grant, I think the preparation that are some of the elements in this grant is still something that is it'll be helpful in our master planning process anyways. So so that's what I see as the downside is the delay. I mean, we've been working pretty regularly in getting our master plan steering committee established, and but I look at this program as making a good product better. So, and some of the questions that I have, which we're going to be meeting with Jack Munn of Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission on Friday, is to make sure that, one, that, this can work in concert with the master planning process, that this is not, something, a process into itself, and then we also do the master planning process, that this can be intertwined. And from everything I've read in this, it sounds like it can, but I just want to obviously make sure that that's the case. And then some of the minor logistics and that we need to make sure we work out. And from the staff's point of view, it just means more work that we're going to be working with in conjunction with Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to make this grant happen. But on the other hand, again, I think it can make a good end product better.
I think that, because I know when we did the 2004 master plan, we did it in conjunction with the, I think it was Best Communities initiative there, and it seemed to really feed good information in, and certainly have complemented it, and this will do the same.
It worked well. Yeah.
But to have a good product and take time at it than rush it. Anything else?
No, that's all I had.
Okay. John?
Nothing this evening.
Tim?
The CIP committee held their initial meeting 6 o'clock tonight. We'll be working on getting the submission letters out to the boards, committees, and departments for a July 22nd deadline for project submissions. Looking at workshop with the planning board, the second meeting of September, and hopefully we'll be getting the CIP process completed sometime during the month of August. So the process has begun, and we'll be working through that over the next few months.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I just had a question for Andre.
Yes.
Did you say that the grant, they're looking for 2 people in the Northeast and the Northwest?
They're looking for 2 communities in the northeast and the northwest, correct?
Oh, of the country.
Of the country,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm going,
I'm sorry. I should have been clear on that one, yeah.
I didn't know I'm going okay, thank you.
Yeah, it said communities must be located in New England, Connecticut, Mass, Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, and northern Rocky Mountains, Colorado, and Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming.
Thank you.
Those are where the Orton Foundation offices are located in different parts of the country.
Thank you.
Okay, more convenient for them. Okay, anything from the board? Tom, town council meeting. You were to bring back workforce housing issue with Woodmont?
Yes, and the town council discussed it and then voted to not ask the planning board to have any request made of the Woodmont.
Okay, that's actually covered by our workforce housing ordinance, which is, I think, in our zoning, section 2.3.3, which is inclusionary housing, covers the whole town, so.
Whatever the statute or the
Yeah.
rule requires he's to do, he can do. But
Yeah, that's
nothing
what,
special is to be asked of him.
that's what dictates everything, regardless of what council does or what the planning board does, so. Let's see, anything else? John had asked to speak. Former planning board member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you for granting that. You know,
For the record, John Farrell.
John Farrell, 4 Hancock Drive. Once elected as a town councilor, I can no longer be a private citizen, I guess. I wear that badge all the time. Mr. Chairman, at my request through the town manager, I had asked for the questions that have been coming out on the internet to be placed on PowerPoint and to be addressed by the planning board. I know these meetings have been long and cumbersome, but if you would bear with me for a few moments, I will bring this to a head in rather quickly if I can. Today, another email came out, and just so that no one can ever say that these questions weren't asked again, is that I'd like to read into the record some questions that came out today, and then I'll tie this all together as quickly as possible. I know you have a long evening ahead of you. Question number 1, if we break our 1-acre zoning, what will that do to the property values of those owning 1-acre lots? What will a 6 dwelling per acre lot look like? What will its market value be? What economic impact will it have on our town? Bullet 2, what economic impact will the proposed businesses have on our business base? Will shopping centers go dark in town? Bullet 3, what will be the ecological impact of cutting down thousands of trees and paving and roofing over where they were? Bullet 4, will our fire department be trained and equipped to fight urban alley fires? By whom and at what cost? Next bullet, will our police force be trained and equipped to deal with high-density urban neighborhoods? Next bullet, will our road systems be rebuilt to accept the increased traffic? Second to last bullet coming up here. How many school children will be brought in, and what will the tax impact of all of the above? Now, after serving with you folks for many years and everything, I know a lot of these questions will get answered during the site plans. I know of the 35 slides, a lot of those answers will get addressed then as well as you go through site plan reviews and everything else before the master plan is completed. After the master plan is completed. My ask of you is that as you seem to be probably at the 60 to 70% mark in the presentations of possibly moving to a master plan that the developer will present, is that I ask you to go get the life safety people involved now. Start bringing the public safety people to light. Start sharing, having them come in here and share their input of what they think of this project and start getting them up to speed. Some of the questions are valid. Some of them are not, but the citizens of the town will probably not start to realize what's happening until trees start coming down. And then the questions will get asked, and they'll get asked more frequently. So I would ask you to please involve your public safety pity. John, get somebody from the school involved if you can. Tim has the numbers. But start bringing these things to light so that people do come out and talk to you before trees start coming down. That would be my ask of you this evening. It would be greatly appreciated if you would consider that. I'll leave the questions with Tim, and I'll leave you to your meeting. I have umpires I have to go take care of.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. You're welcome. I think that's something we can work with staff also involving the police, the fire, public works, in the school also, so. I'll probably look at least an internal working committee with town staff that would participate in the meetings that we have also. Okay, anything else from board? If not, just note there's a newspaper article in the read file, I think I'd emailed it out also, concerning Mashpee Commons. It was published back in February. Very positive article from interviewing townspeople, town staff, and those involved with it, so very complimentary. Okay, we'll proceed with our conceptual discussions, which we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have a public hearing after that. And conceptual discussions are just purely discussions. There's no decisions made. We solicit input, and we go from there. And it's a good exchange of back and forth ideas with the presenter. First one is, as everyone knows, Woodmont Commons PUD Master Plan. Just identify yourselves for our records,
Good
please.
evening, John Michaels, 11 Nutfield Drive.
Rick Chelman, Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Mr. Chairman, we made good progress, particularly with the last meeting and recently with the staff, and we're actually going to try to make this pretty short tonight. And one of our intents is that if, we're going to go over traffic tonight, and then we're going to get things together to come in with a formal application. So we've gotten, over the past 8 months, lots of input. It sort of has gelled lately, and we think we have at least a really good basis to get going. So tonight we're going to go over traffic things. Rick's going to go over what we've done, and we've had extensive discussions with the staff.
Yes, we have. See if we can get this to work. Just before we talk about traffic, we talked last month about changing the level 2 plan, and especially the area up where exit 4A West, which is not a part of the submittal. This is now wrapped with the lesser density matching the neighborhood, as we talked about. The mixed-use area got smaller, W25 got bigger, W211 got a lot bigger. So there's a little bit of a zoom in, so you can see a little bit better. So that was one change as a result of last month's discussion. Before I get into the traffic slides, and believe it or not, I'm going to do this pretty quickly. As of today, and as of this morning and additional discussions this afternoon, we have reached consensus with staff on what the scope of the traffic review will be for the master plan process. And I think we're all pretty happy with that. So the way that traffic analysis will work is I have to break down all the uses east and west of 93. The Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE, has what are called land use codes, or LUCs, for everything from single-family houses to retail to, live, work, all sorts of different types of uses.
Was that number reference a particular code?
That's the land use code from the ITE manual.
Okay.
The ITE manual, it's a stack of books that are about this thick that do traffic generation numbers.
Almost like the uniform traffic signal thing, which is
Right.
fairly lengthy.
And for land uses, say on 102, it's actually quite accurate in terms of its prediction. It'll tell you quite accurately how much traffic a Home Depot or a Walmart will generate. Here, because of the nature of the project, I then have to go through a process that I'm going to have to explain to staff. It results in what's called capture, where because you have the walking, biking, and internalization of trips that don't leave the site, it generates traffic differently. So that'll be something we'll go over with staff in much more detail. Then we take and show where the traffic will be going on each side of 93.
So what are the arrows and the percentages represent?
13% to and from Derry in this direction, 5% to and from Hovey Road here, 16% up and down Hardy, 16% back and forth in Pillsbury, and 25% each on out on toward 102 and Gardner and Gilcrest.
This is current?
No, this is taking
Projected.
the projected traffic at build-out for Woodmont. The traffic that does leave the property, where is it going and where is it coming from?
What is the percentage of? Is it a percentage increase on current or?
This is the percentage of Woodmont traffic itself. So let's say, just use round numbers, let's say 100 cars are leaving Woodmont at the peak hour. 25 would come here, 25 would come here, 16 would go there, 16 would go there.
How many total cars do you expect to have inside of the Woodmont space?
I can't tell you number of cars, I can tell you amount of traffic. There's, car ownership is typically less in these types of projects than in, conventional.
I don't believe that. I'm sorry, I can't believe that. The number of housing that you're gonna have 2 people in a house and at least, and you're gonna have 2 cars per person, so I can figure on that.
There will be people living in the downtown area who will almost certainly only have 1 car. It's a market. It's people who don't want to own more than 1 car. It's a specific market. Now, if you have
I'm sorry, I don't think you can convince me of that, and I don't think you can convince a lot of people in this town of that either.
Well, we'll get data and show it to staff. A house in this location here is less likely to have a reduction in cars than houses down here in the village center.
Question, now, is this taking in consideration that Garden Lane is gonna be connected to Pillsbury?
This is best estimates at this point. When we get to the stage of phase 1 submittal and an actual traffic impact analysis is done, then we will have to go through what's called a gravity model, where you look at where all the outlying employment, outlying housing, where people who live elsewhere and come to work here, how they get here, that sort of thing. But based on my review of all of the other traffic studies that I've seen, including 102, Rosencrantz, and some others that John has given me, these are pretty close for build-out.
So, but these are all a percentage of increase over what is current?
No. This is where the traffic going to and coming from Woodmont goes, if it leaves the site. So there'll be some traffic that just circulates, car traffic, that just circulates inside the project. I don't think the town or many of us really care too much about that. That's the developer's concern. But for what's the impact on the town, we want to know the cars leaving the site, where are they going, and for cars coming from outside the site going to it, where are they coming from? That's what this is about.
Rich, but I think we're also concerned about what is over and above what we currently have.
Okay, I have one slide that has that data. That's actual trips, numbers of cars, AM peak that we're estimating, PM peak cars estimated. And the one location that I have data from the DOT is at Gilcrest 102 in the 2020 projection. And these projections that I've done would show that Woodmont traffic at that location would represent 6 to 9% of the traffic at that intersection.
I understand that you're saying it would represent 6 to 9% of the traffic, but we're looking at, say, 100 trips right now. So it's 6 to, it would be more than that 100 trips, and you would represent, so if it was 150 trips, you would represent 6 to 9% of that.
There's a whole preceding paragraph that I extracted that from, but here are the actual numbers. What it's saying is that at the peak hour in the PM, there'd be 210 cars going up Gilcrest and 235 cars coming down. Some number of the cars coming down Gardner will turn right and get involved with the traffic here. That's why I have a range of 6 to 9%. If none of these cars came down, it would be 6%. If, half of them do, it's going to be about 9%. The point of the analysis is to show that Woodmont doesn't blow things up. It's a big project.
Excuse me, did you include the traffic for the 700,000 square feet of office space, the 550 rooms of hotels, and the hospital that you want to put in?
Yes.
Now, how many, question that I have, if I did some rough numbers, because I went on the internet and checked around what 700,000 square feet would roughly come up to be, if I looked at it as pure cubicle space. And again, we can talk about max and min numbers here. You're talking about roughly 5,300 office cubicles that can be made out of 700,000 square feet. Now, granted, that's not all going to be taken into account, but if I take 5,000 a day, I can literally have 5,000 cars coming into that site every single day, and that's not incorporating the hotels and the hospitals, and not including the people that live there. That's an awful lot of traffic.
One of the assumptions that I had to make was what is on the east side of 93 and what is on the west side of 93.
You have zoned 700,000 square feet right now for the west side. That's what you're asking for. So that's what I took in consideration, because conceptually, you can do that.
It can go either sides. It's 700,000 for the total project.
Where are you putting the hotels? Where are you putting the hospital?
That's these assumptions. The hospital is on the east side of 93 in this analysis,
It was drawn in on the west side.
and there's been additional discussions since then. It's not a site plan.
Understand, but understand the numbers we're playing with. You can, at some point in time, put 700,000 square feet on the west side.
Not if you put 562,000 on the east side, you cannot.
Yeah, I think what John's getting at, though, is the W2-3 Maxima has 700,000 square feet potential.
Right.
It's not to say that you would not put some of that on the other side, but that's the potential.
It's the potential. So if you look at max and mid numbers about what you're adding, I think you're on the light side is what I'm driving at more so than anything else. I think you're trying to make the numbers look very palatable to us at this particular point without showing us the true impact of what may or may not happen here.
There's no hide the ball here.
There's no hide the ball here.
If phase one was a proposal for 500,000 square feet of office on the west side of 93, there would have to be a traffic analysis for that. To do this analysis at this level of the master plan, I have to make assumptions of stuff on the east and stuff on the west. And I don't know what's going to be on the east and what's on the market will determine that.
So I think you need to do a study where you have max and mins, right? We say potentially the maximum that we're going to have is X on the west side. Maximum we're going to have on the east side is X. The minimum we'll have on the west side is X or Y. And the minimum we'll have on the east side is Y. I mean, I think those are the numbers we really need to look at to understand
Those numbers
the true impacts to what this project may do to traffic.
No. Those numbers would by definition do at least double the traffic because you'd have the maximum on both sides, which is the possible. We're showing that it could be on either side. So if you show the maximum on both sides, you've just doubled it. See what I mean?
Or could that be like a worst-case scenario?
No,
Am I correct in saying that?
I'm trying to be-
But we're doing that with the,
I'm trying
when we look at the numbers, they say up to and including this amount. And we've always heard, for instance, with the housing, in a particular area, and I'll pick it out, dwellings, 100 of mixed type. We've always heard that 100 is the maximum, but will it be 100? We don't know. It might not be 100, it might be 50. See, that's the point that I'm making here, is that we see things on the high side all the time as far as numbers are concerned with square footage and dwellings. When we start talking traffic, we're going to start balancing things out. That doesn't make sense to me. If you're gonna give me max numbers for one thing, you have to give me max numbers for another thing. Your traffic, because those numbers potentially could be that max for that 100 in this example.
Part of this discussion is why Andre and I were having debates at prior meetings. We're getting into details on traffic that I don't think we should be getting into at a master plan level, honestly, because if you approve the master plan tonight, you can't do it. Let's just say you voted unanimously to approve it tonight. They can't build anything, nothing. That gives them the right not to build anything. They have to come back and submit formal site plan and subdivision plans with all of the accompanying studies. At that time, it's real. At that time, we know it either is 187,000 square feet of office on the west side of 93, or it's not. It's a specific proposal, and it has to submit and fit into whatever the conditions are at that time.
So is it safe to assume that, based on your statement alone, that the numbers that you're showing us are not real either?
No, I spent some time with this, and if you think about it, this is an application with no West 93 Exit 4. That, to me, is a very different project. And do you want to have an office buried in the middle of this project? Probably not as much as you'd like to be on the east side with good highway access. That's what I was thinking. Maybe I'm, crazy, but that's additional discussion I think we'll have with staff. Staff will want us to go through and justify these numbers. So as soon as and if, but this is a different application, we've already agreed we'd come back for a new master plan. If we get Exit 4 West, these numbers would change. I'm sure they would change.
I'm with John. I have a concern. I'd like to know what the potential is, because if we approve a master plan, we're effectively setting that's the zoning. That's what's permitted in this area. So the master plan at this point, with the level of detail here, said we have the potential for you to come back and say we want a 700,000 square foot somewhere on the west side. Say the east side doesn't. You want to put something different in there, and it's not office space. So we have the potential for that being on the western side. Once we approve the master plan, we've set the zoning, and you have the right to come back and say we want to do this, and we don't really have a right then to say no because it's been zoned that way.
I think you do based on impact, but you're reminding me that certain aspects of the plan I haven't changed since we were trying to keep that Exit 4 West as an option. And one of the things that probably should change, and I have to talk with Mike about this, is the amount of office on the west side without 4 should be less. It should be less than 700,000 because it's not realistic.
I have a question, if you know. You're saying there's a 6 to 9% increase in traffic coming on, I guess, 102.
Yes.
Onto the bottom there. Do you know what the capacity on 102 is now? I mean, is it a full utilization? Is it a 110 utilization? For example, I mean, a 6% increase on an underutilized road really doesn't mean that much, but a 6% increase on a, at capacity or overcapacity road. At 8 o'clock in the morning, 102 is very crowded. Adding 6% to that is a big difference than, a road that nobody goes down, and adding 6% to that. Would you agree with that?
Well, it depends. The next level of analysis would get into that in detail. I don't know the performance of that intersection. I don't have the signal timing plan. All I have is the state projections from 2020 that were volumetric, and I compared these volumes to those volumes.
And
so that's what I know.
What does that say?
That Woodmont would add 6 to 9%.
But to what? To a crowded road or to a...
Well, it's certainly a crowded road, but, is it a road that can't be mitigated? I doubt it. And one thing that is certain is nothing can be built that can't be mitigated. If we can't show that the traffic can be mitigated, you won't approve it.
Andre?
Yeah, I just want to touch on something that Rick had said. The things that we worked with the applicant on with regard to this is that this is an estimate. This is no different from when the planning board undertook its corridor plan on Route 102. It had its zoning. It made projections based on whatever that zone is, whether it's commercial 1, commercial 2, industrial, whatever, and made its best estimate of what level of trips will be generated, where those trips are going to go, and what impact it's going to have on the corridor, on the infrastructure. And that's exactly what we're asking them to do. And they have to make an assumption at this point in time, because I guess some of the disagreement we had at the beginning was we didn't want this to be a traffic impact statement because we have a defined process in our site plan requirements that addresses that. What we're looking for is to get some answers as to if we approve this master plan, and right now we're talking conceptually, but when they do submit their master plan, at least we'll be working with a defined product. We know what the master plan is, therefore those assumptions will become a lot more real, and therefore if he does the analysis based on this best estimate of what's going to be generated there, what's going to be on the east side, what's going to be on the west side, and how that's distributed amongst the corridor, then it gives the board some idea of what to expect. And that analysis will include what impact it's going to have and what improvements are going to be needed at various intersections. And keep in mind, those are going to be based on full build-out.
But how can we approve a master plan if we don't know what the effect of a 6 to 9% increase is going to be on traffic? Isn't that a big, leap for us to make?
My understanding is that would be included.
We just came to an agreement this morning on what the scope of this traffic analysis needs to be. That work has not yet been done. We just have the bare bones initial framework that's been presented to us at this point. There's still a ways to go in terms of getting that into the framework that we've agreed to today.
And that would be based on the final product. I mean, right now, we're talking conceptual. I'm assuming that this night, and I don't know if this is going to lead to another one, that is putting together the master plan, but just like in a formal application for a site plan, I can talk conceptually about whatever site plan that may be coming before us, but until they submit a site plan, then we can start analysis. And once they submit a formal application, then it's going to kick in the very reviews that John Burrell spoke about. It goes through all the departments. It goes to our reviewing consultant. It goes through a lot of things to give input back to the board so you can make informed decisions as to what the impacts are going to be.
So just to go back to the question from Tom, 6% was arrived how? How did you arrive at 6% if you don't know the loading of 102? Where did 6% come from? How did you arrive at that number, I guess, is what we're asking.
I took the list of land uses shown here. I took the percentage distribution that I described earlier, shown here, did the arithmetic, and then got the state's study for this intersection that shows the state's volumes, and here are our volumes, and did the math.
So 6% represents 235?
In the peak hour.
445, actually, in and out.
All right, in and out. 445 in and out over
To-
what
it-
period?
It's a
That's
PM,
the fo-
PM
That's
peak
the 4
hour.
to 6 p.m. peak hour.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, thank you.
One of the things that Rick didn't mention, but that isn't part of what we're doing, based on this information, based on studies that exist, based on what Rick's doing, we're going to go and, for example, take the corner of Gilchrist and Pillsbury. We're going to say, in part of what Rick comes up with, based on these things, we may need, and I'm just making it hypothetical, we may need at that place, we may need, some right-hand turn lanes within 3 to 5 years. We may need a
Signal.
a signal. We may need a turnabout. So part of what also is coming and what the staff wants is something that will address, some of your questions. What is this, in Tom's questions, what is this impact going to be like at Gilchrist? What will that be? That may mean another turn lane. It may mean changing the signal. And we are going to give, as part of what we're doing, something that says, the best estimate based on these things, with these volumes, we may need this in the short term, we may need this in a longer term. And that's going to be based on the studies that are done there and the things that Rick did. One of the other things that we've discussed with staff is some of the questions you go to, what are these assumptions? What are the backups? And we're going to go and discuss with the staff some of the very questions you raised. Is it, do you, in the assumptions you're making here, do you include 700,000 square feet? Do you include 5? And so part of what we're doing is going to go over with the staff at length, what's the backup? What are the assumptions? Are these, reasonable or not? So I think some of the questions you're raising are in part of what we have an agreement with staff that we are going to go and do and provide them. And when we provide the master plan, there will be a portion of the master plan, a written portion that will have numbers like this. There'll be things written. And in addition, we will be providing at the same time, what's the backup of how you got it. Rick showed the list before of, the traffic code, 810. Well, we're gonna have something, 810, the formula is, so much. So if somebody wants to go beyond and see what's in it, the staff is definitely gonna go beyond and see what's in, but if anybody else wants to understand, what are the assumptions? How did you come up with the formula? Is this reasonable or not reasonable? That's one of the things which, we are going to be doing. So I think some of the questions that you are raising, we're gonna go at some length over the next months, with the staff, more I call it more, we're going back to the tree. We sort of came up with an outline of what we're doing and some of the things. This is a first cut at a system for going forward, and then we're gonna go in greater detail. I don't know if that helps answer your
Okay,
question, John, but.
Okay, Tina first, and Lynn, and then I'll.
Okay, I understand that it's an estimate and everything, but I'm still trying to grasp, are the peak counts per hour in addition to, because the only thing we can go by is what is current, the current peaks per hour. So are those counts in addition to that or including that? And, without knowing what the current is, I can't grasp it.
Addition to.
Okay, so what is the current?
Maybe a question for
Approximate.
staff.
We don't have current counts for most of these intersections.
Does this
Is it-
do it sound?
I'm sorry, but that's the only way I can understand how much of an impact it's gonna be.
I understand that. I think one thing I'd like to explain, I've said this before, but I think it might help with this discussion, because I know that this, without additional information, it may seem totally abstract, but I think this specifically answers the question in the PUD ordinance in detail and what it asks for in terms of preliminary data. I think it's important, and Tim, please correct me if I'm wrong, but all a master plan approval gives the applicant the right to do is to submit more applications. It does not give him the right to build anything. And it's those additional applications where we know that a hardware store or a bookstore or a shoe store or some houses or whatever the phase is, it's real, it's specific. And, he's got potential tenants, he's got potential buyers. That application goes for site plan. That application has traffic impact analysis like everything else that you guys look at, and it's at that point you find out if there's a problem that needs mitigation. I think.
But here's the problem, right?
Sure.
You're asking for us to look at these things, and it is abstract, right?
Mhm.
And to basically set it up so you do have the master plan. But there are some components of this that, until we understand what the impact of the traffic is gonna be, we may come back and say, you know what? Based on what you're showing us for traffic studies, or what we understand the traffic is gonna be, we're not gonna be able to support 1,300 homes. We may be only be able to support 900 homes, and I'm using that as an abstract. But you see what I'm saying? You're asking us to kind of put the cart before the horse in some instances, because we can't make an assessment of whether or not this is going to have a positive or negative impact. We're working off of 1,300 homes and everything that you've been telling us as the impact to our current traffic ways based on some abstractions.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you get close to the microphone there, and everyone at home can hear you.
There is no traffic, there's no potential traffic until such time as we have an overlay district that's approved by this board. There's nothing here. There's no proposals. There's no buildings. There's no nothing. And you can't determine traffic until you have something that you're going to propose. It's all voodoo. We can give you numbers all day long, and Rick can grind them out all day long, and they're going to mean nothing until we have a proposal in front of you. I'm looking for zoning. I will get into site-specific details when we come back and submit the phasing. There's absolutely, this is a really ring around the rosy comment and question and answer, because you're never going to be able to answer your question, and you're never going to get an answer until we have a site-specific plan in front of the planning board. That's where you plan. And anything that we propose in phase 1 has to be mitigated, as does phase 2. And you have to include phase 1 and phase 2 and everything in the background that's happened here. If we say we're going to build 700,000 square feet of office, it might all end up over on the east side. Some of it might end up over on the west side, and we're going to have to demonstrate to you that we can mitigate that traffic. If we can't mitigate it, and we can't prove that we can mitigate it, it doesn't get built. So we can sit here all night long trying to answer your question, but we can't give you an answer because we don't have a specific plan in front of you, nor do we have the zoning that gives us the right to do that. And that's really what it boils down to. It's really as simple as that. I can't propose until I know what I can build on this property.
And if I can ask, how can you come up with a 6% estimate of traffic coming down? It's just an estimate.
It's just an estimate.
Okay.
It's an estimate based on experience by ITE and by what the scenario might be.
I think there were some specific assumptions that you took, Rick, to
Yeah.
arrive at that. So
But
it's
if you're
based
saying,
upon-
if you've narrowed the answer to 6%, you can extrapolate that,
range
and
of
that
six-
means.
It's a range of
Okay.
6 to 9.
Well, 6%,
Yep.
and you said it represents 445 cars, that means that there's 7,416 passing through that area at whatever measured time you do. I mean, if you're saying that's 6%, that represents,
Right, you can do the math
Yeah.
the other way.
okay.
It is based on all of the assumptions that I showed, where the land uses get located, the ITE projections,
But
the
all I'm
capture
saying is, I
rates.
think that was Dana's question, is where are you coming up with the number? And so now we know it's 7,416, and it's an estimate, it's a guess at this point, because you don't have a plan.
I understand that it's 200 additional, okay. But without knowing, if it's currently at 200, well, now I'm looking at a total of 400. That's all I'm trying to understand is where we're at today. I understand that you don't know till we're gonna get a site plan. All I'm trying to do is understand what the approximate total build-out impact is gonna be over what we currently have.
And
That's
you-
all I'm looking for.
And you will know that with detail as each building is proposed to be built. What that 6% is the state's projection of the year 2020 for all of the development that it projected in the 102 corridor area, which included some houses on Woodmont Commons. Not very much, but some. And I took those numbers and then took the numbers that I generated, and that's how I come up with the 6%, because they are projecting a lot of traffic at that intersection. But again, that's the year 2020 with Woodmont at build-out. I bet that there will be something other than Woodmont happening in the next 20 years in Londonderry. You guys are busy. You're going to see more and more applications come before you over time. Things are going to get built. Things are going to leave. The area changes. And that's why traffic has to be updated based on current conditions. So it really is abstract to be looking at a master plan zoning. And to have really much concerns about it, I understand you feel concerned for the town, you want to protect the town, but the town is very well protected because, again, you can't build anything based on a master plan.
Okay, but, we live here now.
Sure.
And we've all drive down that area, so we have some sort of concept of what it's like at most parts of the day. Would you guys have an estimate of what if it's 7,400 in 2020, what's it now? So that we've got some way of comparing it.
Tom, I think one of the things,
And
there are
John, my
studies.
point is,
Oh, I know.
if it's
I
1,000 cars
where you're coming
now,
from.
7,400 as a projection, I can imagine 7 times
I
that.
understand where you're coming from. And what there are is, Hannaford's did studies there, the state have done studies. They're a few years old, and they based on, some projections forwards. to get you this scientific, this is exactly the number, that we can't do. What we can come up with is something that gives an indication that, you know, that they're projecting these increases over time. They're projecting it based on a certain percentage a year, because that's in studies that exist. And if you take those studies that are done, you know, we're adding a certain amount. But there are some base numbers there, because there were base numbers on the corners. And so, you know, I don't know what the base number was on that particular corner, but it's been studied a couple of times, and, you know, you can probably say, well, in, you know, 75 it was 5,100 cars, and we grow roughly 1%, so we can get some rough approximations. One of the things that the staff wants, and staff is actually asking the same questions you are. You know, give us some idea as to where it is. To get you an absolutely perfect base number, they can't do, but to give you some idea, there is information there based on what Rick is coming up with to be added, and what studies have been done before. We can get, you know, some numbers, and the staff is asking for the same stuff.
When they do a study, is this the gray box with the black wire that goes across the street and you just
Which is
measure?
currently on
Not
Go
at this
Press
level,
right
no.
now.
No.
That would be something that would be in a full traffic analysis at a site plan level.
Okay.
What you're asking for, Tom, staff, John's absolutely right. We've been beating him up about.
Not enough.
We can only beat them up so much.
It still goes back to the basic premise. There's nothing here now until there's zoning. You're rezoning the piece of property. You are the rezoning board. We're before you with a proposal, and we'll be formalizing that process over the next couple of months, and be before you on that formal process. You're gonna make a decision as to whether what we've asked is reasonable. You're gonna take a look at it, but you always have to have in the back of your mind that traffic has to be addressed on a site-specific basis. There's nothing, we can't hide it, we can't soft shoe it, we have to present it, staff has to understand it, everybody has to come across and understand it, and then you stamp it and it gets billed. What we're talking about here is not a planning process per se, it's a rezoning. And that's what we're here tonight, is to determine, well, in the future, is to determine the appropriateness of the PUD, and then move forward with site-specific plans as we move forward. And that's when the traffic gets addressed. Nothing's hidden, no secret agendas, no nothing. Either the traffic works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't get built. And we've said that from day one, and we're saying it again tonight. And it's really as simple as that. I hate to say that, but it is really that simple. We have to come and prove to you that our traffic is mitigated at the site-specific plans that we put before you in the future. And that's the only way it can be done and quantitative, and be quantitative. Really, really and truly. And like I said before, it has to take in everything that we're doing.
Mr. Chair, Lynn has been real patient.
Okay, Andre said, okay. Okay, Lynn. Then I'll do Lisa.
And I understand, Mike, exactly what you're saying, and I guess, you know, you put together a traffic impact analysis, for lack of a better word, based on this build-out scheme. But getting back to John's point earlier, one of his first points was, you know, this represents a certain philosophy on how you're gonna develop the property. Certainly there's a worst-case scenario, too, that I think we could take a look at. It may not give us the exact numbers, but I think we need to put the context of the site plans and the individual traffic impact studies from the site plans in the context of the worst case of the complete project. And, you know, I saw a letter today from Sharon Carson talking about funding for Exit 4A, and that there's no funding for Exit 4A. So let's say that never happens. What does that do to the west side plans, the plans for the west side of 93? Is it gonna put more development over there? You know, that's the type of thing we need to look at for the worst-case scenario. You know, like Mike says, we have to look at it at the individual site plan level, but you presented these numbers to us, too, to give us an idea on where you think it's going to end up.
And that's what it is, it's an estimate.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, but an estimate is based on, I don't know, is it your best guess scenario? Is it your worst guess scenario? Is it the middle?
I tried to be
We need to
reasonable.
understand where
I
that
tried to
is.
be reasonable with it. You know, I could have said, put all the office on the east side of 93, put all the commercial, put a corner store on the east side of 93, and the numbers would have been tiny. And, you know, I wouldn't have felt right representing that to you because I don't think it's reasonable. You know, I put a significant amount of office, maybe too much, and I think I've, just looking at this slide, if that's an 8, I think I've got an addition error.
There are some addition errors in there.
But somewhere, there's a reasonable range that I think we need to know, the upper and the lower limit, and where you're at in the middle.
We'll provide that to you.
Yeah, but I think we need that.
Yeah,
That's
I
right,
think
and
what
you'll
Lou-
have it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, Letha?
Yeah, we just spent the last half an hour talking about traffic, and I'm really curious. I'd like to know, considering we've been chastised here for the last half an hour about, yes, that's site plan level, and I don't disagree with that point. It is site plan level, and to your point, yes, you're correct. But then why are we bringing this up then? Why did you bring it to our forum tonight to discuss it if it was essentially a half an hour of,
The staff is,
Beat us down with
there's, the PUD ordinance says preliminary estimates of trip generation, trip distribution, and areas to be examined for analysis.
Summary of impact. And summary of impact.
Summary of impact. And we have had debates with staff for months about what that means. I took the position we didn't and shouldn't get to this level of detail because we'd have this type of discussion. And staff has wanted to get as close to a traffic impact analysis as they could get. And so it's been that tension and discussion that has brought us to this sort of thing. And as Tim said, there's going to be more analysis and more stuff to do. But I just thought you should see some graphics and have some idea, because for all I know, you might be thinking that Woodmont is going to generate 10,000 cars in the peak hour at 102 or something. You know, and we need some numbers. I thought it would be useful for you to see numbers that you know that's not in fact the case.
You also, Andre?
Yeah, again, I just want to reemphasize the scope of the traffic summary again. It was stated that, you know, again, we're taking our best estimate, you know, this, and for example, on exit 5, we took our best estimate as to what we project based on the zoning in that area, what we project to be the traffic impact resulting from the area next to Harvey or along Route 28 and the backside of the Jacksonville Road and all the other potential development parcels there, and came up with and married that with existing traffic there, and came up with an estimate of improvements that needed to take place along Route 28. And again, this study that the outline of the study that we shared with that we worked with the applicant, you know, again, it's the best estimate that we have based on whatever is the end result of the master plan that gets submitted for review. They're giving us their best estimate of what that's going to generate in traffic. Marry that with what's there existing and show us, you know, how is this going to affect the infrastructure. That is what we're looking for. Hopefully we'll give the board some answers to start the review. You know, the look at as it's reviewing this master plan, it would give some ideals. And again, to Mr. Kattenbach's point, this is the best estimate. I mean, this is what we're working with. As much like my example of Route 28, as a Harvey industry comes in, our estimate could be off. It could be right on. It could be, give or take, a couple hundred trips. But it at least gives an idea of what we can expect.
It's, as Andres described, he's basically describing what we just finished with the western segment of Route 28 when we did the impact fee methodology and the corridor study update. It's taking the existing zoning, projecting what the potential traffic can be, what's out there now, improvements, costing it out. That's for the impact fee analysis. In this case, looking at it from the perspective, here's the best estimate of what build-out will be on this particular project, here's the intersections, here's conceptually what we're going to be looking at for potential improvements.
so, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, so Tim and Andre, can we assume then that based on what has been presented in the last half an hour regarding the traffic, that at least you're on board with what they're telling us? I mean, do we
Yeah,
have
the
confidence
outline-
from you two that what we're being presented is the best we have at this time?
And I just want to go back, as they submit this master plan, and getting to your point, as they submit this master plan for a formal hearing, they're gonna submit this traffic review in accordance with the outline that we agree to, and we're gonna review it. We're gonna look at the impacts and work with their traffic consultant, and along with our traffic consultant, to make sure that you know, the end result is something that we all can live with. You know, that at least we have an ideal, if when they start coming in and submitting site plans for this master plan, we have an ideal of what that overall impact's gonna be. And that's the same thing that goes to sewer, as we look at what the potential traffic the build-out for this area is gonna be. We're gonna assign whatever allocation of gallons that would be used by a commercial entity, a residential entity, an apartment entity, or office entity, and say, you know, if this were to build out, it's gonna use X amount of gallons of sewer, water, whatever. Do we have that capacity here? And will all the capacity of this area of town be utilized by this development, or are we all right? That, you know, even at maximum build-out here, there's enough capacity here to address their issue, their project, as well as everything else in Route 102 area. So those are the things that we're gonna be looking at, but we need a project to base that on.
Yes, but if the capacity's used up, that full build-out won't occur, or as
Well,
proposed.
yeah, and it's, you know, and we'll know that, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, one thing we haven't given you, and I don't know, but what we are putting together, Rick has given you some of the parts, but we have, in trying to go what we're doing, we have gone over with staff something we call a narrative discussion and descriptions. We get into, for example, how much we think is going to be on each side. We make a table, how much we think is going to be on each side. I can give you this, but as everybody understands, this is a work in process of where we are heading. It shows some of the things that you're asking. We just got.
It explains how these numbers were developed.
Yeah, and let me
Okay.
just give you some of these things.
Probably could answer some questions, lead to more questions.
This is, if you take this as providing the categories of information that we are going to be providing, this will make, I think this may help you understand better.
This was the jumping off point to where we've continued our discussions to determine exactly what the scope needs to be moving forward.
And then,
So this is
so
the,
just look at this as a guide, Art, for what we're gonna be presenting to you. But this is just the first work in progress. We wanted to, we decided it was better not to hand it out until we had input, and we had staff input, but because we're here and there's been so many questions, why don't you just take it with you, read it, and so when we present to you, you already have an idea of what it is that we're talking about, and it might help you to make a more informed decision based on your staff recommendations, your traffic engineer's recommendations, and your recommendations. And I think, so in that sense, I think it might be helpful to clearly understand that you have,
It's going to be updated.
if you have issues.
There's
that
work
it's
to go
gonna be
on that.
Updated, it's a work product, and that staff is gonna be working with you, and that you, if you have questions as this goes along, you talk with your staff. And I'm sure they can explain it to you. If you need us to come back and explain it to you, we'd be happy to do that before we put in the final submission. But we've been doing this for 8 months. We really feel that we are at a point where we need to make a final submission to you, and we need to let the project stand on its own merits. So, that said.
okay, we
And-
will, yes.
Question to Tim and Andre, based on the discussions that we've just had, do you feel comfortable that you have all the information that you need to accurately overlay the information that this traffic study and subsequent traffic studies around the zoning for the town of Londonderry in the area? So do you have all the information, or do you need to get more information to make an
As of
accurate
right
assessment?
now, it's a work in progress. Again, that report that you have there spurred the discussions that we've had to get to the scope. When we have that scope and we have the submission of that report that addresses the agreed-upon parameters, yeah, I think we're going to have the framework that we need in order to move forward with site plans and subdivisions.
And
Okay,
then
just
from
let
there,
me
we're going to
just make
review
sure I
it.
understand,
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that you have all the information currently about our town, regardless of, right now it's an apple orchard. Do you have all the information you need about traffic in our town to overlay what they're gonna provide to us? Or do we have to go and get accurate counts for Gilchrist? Do we,
Yeah.
things like that seem to be not available at this particular point. Do you have that information? Can you get that information, or do we have to go get that information?
With regard to traffic counts, for instance, somebody mentioned the tubes across the road. We do have 10 years' worth of Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission traffic counts, not all of which are in the same location, but most of which are along Route 102, Gilchrist Road, Pillsbury Road, whatever, and those obviously can be passed along to the applicant to make sure they have everything. But also, I want the board to keep in mind that when they submit their formal master plan along with this traffic report, it's going to get reviewed by staff and our reviewing consultant. I mean, just because they submit an application doesn't mean that they're submitting, that the board has to approve it. I mean, it's going to review it much like a site plan. And in this particular case, you're going to have a time to review it to make sure that the answers that you want with regard to traffic and any other aspect of the plan are answered.
Andre, are we undergoing some counts right now? Because there is a road snake sitting on Hovey Road right now.
Yeah, every year, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission
So
does
is that
their traffic
Southern New
count.
Hampshire that's doing that?
That's correct.
So,
And there's
To-
one
to-
on Gilchrist as well. So
yeah, so
it's-
to John's question there,
Yeah,
and in Dana's comment, I think
So-
we definitely want to have what that information is of what's on Hovey, what's on Gilchrist, et cetera, what's on
Yeah,
Pillsbury.
so we are collecting current information now.
Yeah,
So-
right now, we have up to 2009. We have from 1999 to 2009 worth of data. And again, the way Southern Hampshire Planning Commission works, I mean, they're working in conjunction with DOT with regard to traffic counts, especially on the major routes. But Route 102 will be studied, but sometimes it's studied at the Hudson Town line. Sometimes they'll take counts at the Route 128, west or east of Route 128 along Route 102, or they'll look at west of Gilchrist on Route 102. So there's various places, but it should give them the data, at least some base data with regard to what's on the road right now.
Yeah, I think that's beneficial to us to know what there is there right now, and then what's gonna be, added.
And I just use 102 as an example. There are trip generations on Gilchrist or Pillsbury Road and Hovey and in and around Londonderry, but they choose their locations, or they vary the locations every year, but usually they come back to that location, within a 2 to 3 year timeframe.
And we're basing our things, we're taking all of those and using them as the base, and in what we submit, we're referencing the base numbers, referencing the studies.
We haven't
and
yet got those base numbers on what you got tonight. We've got to get that data from.
Yeah. But all the other ones besides the one he's talking about in Southern New Hampshire, we are including numbers having to do with corners. We're including that in what we are giving in. That's one of the things we've discussed, and we're giving the backup. Any number we come up with, we're giving the backup for where it is.
And it's also important, though, even if we had up-to-date 2011 numbers, we're still talking about projecting these out to the ultimate build-out of this project, so it's still going to be a projection of what the base number is going to be without Woodmont when you're looking at the 20-year time frame out the window.
But if you look at Mr. Frieda's question earlier, was where are we from a capacity perspective? We don't know. And I think, and I know, when it seems that when I ask the question, it goes back to the developers, which is fine, but for us on the board, I think it's beneficial for us to have those numbers available to us around town, readily available, so we do understand what our traffic looks like at any given time.
Okay, board have any more questions? Because I want to go to the public, and Jack Falvey has his hand up. When you come down here, Jack, there's a microphone. In fact, you can sit in one of the chairs right there if you want.
I'd just like, Jack Falvey, I'd like to address the real-time traffic implications. If you look at the corner of Gilchrist and Pillsbury, where it says 135, Gilchrist and Pillsbury, where it says 135, and then you look down at the number that says 210 along that line.
Right here.
Okay, between those two numbers last night, for an hour and 15 minutes, there was a solid line of cars moving one at a time. So the impact right now of the current traffic on Gilchrist says that last night, between 4 and 6 o'clock, the cars were lined up from where it says 135 all the way down to where it says 210. And they were moving one at a time, essentially stopped, right now.
Piece of ball.
Pardon me? Without anything else being built. So,
I was there last night, and I called Rick Chilman. I told him exactly where the backup started, and it started just before Cortlandt Street. And I estimated it was between 35 and 40 cars at backup, and I agree with him. I don't disagree.
okay, but I'll come,
That was there, and it was there, and what?
But we don't know why.
It's there because of baseball.
We do.
We know why, we're in it.
But we know that there's a simple fix for that right now, and that's a free right-hand movement onto Pillsbury.
But something like that would have to be fixed before, anything is built at Woodmont.
There's a plan for that now, to go and fix it, to do a right-hand turn. The town has, there's a design for the plans, and we reference in it, and one of the things that we would do, and this is a good example of what narrative. The narrative will say, what we say is, at that corner, there's a current need identified for a left-hand turn, and, we're gonna add so many more cars, and, maybe at that point, in a certain number of years, we do a turnabout to make it work. But today, there's already a problem, but there already is a plan that addresses it, and there's some numbers, pretty accurate numbers as to how many cars and why and how it backs up and all.
Just a terminology clarification, roundabout, I think, is the term you're looking for.
For foreign.
Oh.
Yeah, for the British amongst us.
I see a lot of them in Vermont now, are rotaries, that I thought they were out, but I guess they're coming back in again. At least up there, they seem to, are very workable.
You lot just don't know how to go around them.
Yeah.
I like to use an example, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, when I wear another hat in front of communities, and that's with Market Basket when I represent them. And that's just as important for me to get Mrs. Consumer or the consumer into, it's just as important to get the consumer into the project. It's just as important to get them out of the project. And that's what you design traffic for. You don't design it just to have it fail somewhere else. You design it so that it works all the way around. And if you want to take a specific example, everybody wants to get out of the supermarket once they're in it because they have perishable food. So it's just as important to get them out and back into a road network that works as opposed to not. And I think that's the simplest example that we use in the industry to explain things to people as to why it has to work both ways and all the time. So, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions on the, okay, Lynn?
I have a question unrelated to traffic. And we have this chart now giving an estimated build-out. And one question Andre and I had kicked about a while ago was starting to do some estimated tax impacts. Does this give us any additional insight to go off and start doing some estimated tax impacts? Or do you think we'll be ready to do that soon?
I think we can, with that graph. There's some uses on there that I might have to search around for, but I think I can work with, maybe assessing some of the multipliers we used out in the Pettingill Road area. I think we can apply to these. And if there's an estimated, based on the commercial, industrial, and retail aspect, the estimate number of jobs, I attended a Fairpoint Economic Development Analysis and have a program that you can plug those numbers in based on the type of jobs that are going to be created that give you overall impact, economic impact of those jobs in the community. And so if you have those information, I think we can have both scales, both on the revenue side and both on the job and economic well-being side.
I think that's a key metric. But I think the sooner we get our arms around that, I think the better off for all of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We anticipate that.
Okay, any more questions? You look like you're ready to pounce on us there, Joe. You have the floor.
Yeah, Joe Green, 25 Mammoth Road, Town Councilor. Are we going to be moving off of Woodmont now, or are there going to be further discussions with this, or?
Yeah, I'm going to take questions on this, and then we have our big list of questions.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure we were going to get to that.
Yeah, I want
I'll
to get
sit
to
down.
those after this, so
Okay, thank you.
that's what I was going to ask the board, if they're ready to proceed with all those questions. Was it 37 pages worth, Tim?
I'm just going to leave it for that.
Okay.
What is the intent with the list of questions?
See what we can answer, because, I mean, we've been asked to answer the questions, and I think we at least need to, answer what we can answer. I mean, some of the questions are quite vague, some of them are off the wall, some of them,
Can we try to figure out some process to do it so we're efficient at answering the questions?
If I may, I actually got an email,
Okay, just a second.
yeah, just let me find it. It was separate from the emails I got from Mr. Falvey, but let me find it. There it is. Let me see if I can get this slide running here.
Okay, because I noticed they weren't on here, so.
Yes, what I'm concerned about is all the questions that, require good answers, but good answers could take an hour apiece.
This was a
if we wanted
suggestion
to
I
do
got
that.
from a resident, again, separate from the list that Mr. Falvey had provided. It basically says, the list of questions to the planning board and developer, would it be possible to hold a meeting open to the public and on the local access cable? Sorry about that. And the local access cable channel to answer these, at least the questions that can be answered up to this point, to meeting with some planning board members of the Woodmont Development Team, schedule planning board meetings are just too long for most residents to stay for, set a date to allow developers team and selected planning board members to look at the questions and answer them before the set meeting.
That would probably, I mean,
We'll do it.
thought would be probably a better way to handle that. Because it could be lengthy. That's my only concern, because we have other business tonight.
Will be.
But we'd be happy
Will
to,
be.
we would be happy to participate.
Okay. And,
Hi,
just a sec-
Doug Jones, 55 Wilson Road. Just before we get off of traffic, I was wondering, any of the intersections around the proposed development, are they in failure already?
I think, was it Gilchrist,
There are,
Pillsbury?
at least Pillsbury Gilchrist we know is already in failure.
That's probably one of the worst intersections in town.
So there are problems that are known right now?
Probably, yes. And I know when Sugar Plum went in, I know they contributed to an impact fee for improvement of that intersection in that part of Pillsbury and Gilchrist. And the bulk of the expense on that is the town's responsibility. And basically, the town's gonna have to come up with some money to redo it, or to work with Woodmont on what's gonna be their impacts there, to properly address it.
Gilchrist and 102 also pretty close to
And,
failure.
Andre?
And also with regard with the Rosecrans project, one of the things that existed before Rosecrans came was that it was a free movement from, say, Route 102 through to Hardy Road. And what was causing some of the failure was the left turns coming from Pillsbury Road onto Gilchrist Road. So that's why there's a three stop sign intersection now, so that at least everybody has an ample opportunity to get and process traffic through that intersection. But it still was identified as being, that was a temporary fix that was brought it from a level of service F to a level of service, I think, C or D. But obviously, with increased traffic, it's going to continue to degrade into a level of service F.
Yes, I know it's a big problem currently.
One more comment?
Yes, Joe?
So since we're in this section now, I didn't know if we were going to get into it or not. So the reason why I came to the mic in the first place, thank you very much, that was a great introduction, was because I felt that these questions would be very time-consuming in this type of forum. What Dottie at the Cable Access has been talking about, she and I have been talking about, is actually having a session on cable access where I would host people from Woodmont and maybe somebody from your board, and the three of us would sit down, the three of you, maybe somebody from the board, myself, and we'd actually go on there with these questions, because the reason why I came up to the mic was to say, this is going to take 5-6 hours to do it right. So one of the things that I propose is that as a town councilor, as somebody that goes to Woodmont, knows these people very, very well on a weekly basis, and maybe somebody that you elect, I'd be more than happy to host it and go forward. Dottie and I have been talking about something like this for a while. So I just wanted to throw it out there. I'd be more than happy to do it.
I think it's a great idea.
Well,
Mary?
the only concern that I have is that a board member would only be speaking as one board member.
One individual member.
They wouldn't be speaking as the whole board, and if these questions are, if you want these questions to be answered by the complete board, it really should be done at this forum.
Well, that, I think could end up being lengthy also.
Well, I understand that too. I'm simply saying.
So,
That would,
We
that
have
would,
done-
having
Mike, because I think
this
what
forum,
comes in
but
the
a
realm of the
different
planning board, I think
Yes.
could be addressed by staff also.
You know, one of the things, if I may, Mary, I think that's a good point, but one of the things that, if you look at these, some of them are gonna be at site plan. You know, some of these, and one of the things that might educate the public would be to say, you know, this is the type, and I don't know that, you know, being a town council, I don't know that. You guys are the experts in it. So we could go through the questions and say, hey, you know what, that's gonna be handled at a site plan, because at a site plan, this is what we do, and kind of define that, and say, let's put that on the list for when it gets to the site plan. So kind of go through these questions, and I'll facilitate them that way and organize them.
Because maybe questions that need to be answered by the full planning board could come back to the planning board.
If you
to
go
sort it
through
out
the
that way.
list, the vast majority of the questions are directed towards the developer, except for some miscellaneous questions. Again, there's a lot of miscellaneous questions for the planning board, but the vast majority of the design and PUD master plan questions are more developer-oriented.
I just didn't want to open that up with Dottie. It's something that I've been talking to her about, and I didn't want to open that up to cable access if you guys weren't comfortable with it, because I don't want to step on your toes, but I think it's kind of one of those things that somebody has to host it kind of in the middle. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of the planning and the developer, so I'd be more than happy to. Just think about it and see if you want me to,
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to do it.
I mean, overall, I think it is a good idea, and probably the real detailed planning board stuff, or something could come back to the planning board to answer, or it could come to, that we could submit our response, and kind of Tim could compile it together into something. Lynn?
Yeah, and just one question I would have, though, too, would be, you know, how legally binding are the answers? Or
At
will it
this
be part of the
stage,
public
everything is
record?
conceptual, so that nothing is
As
binding.
As long as we all understand that. right?
Conceptual discussion, there's nothing binding. There's
No,
nothing
no, and
legally
and I
that
just,
binds you.
I think that's an important point to understand, is the questions and answers
They can
don't
take
have a
our-
lot of meaning at this point in time
Yeah,
either.
'cause every conceptual, they can take our advice, or they don't take our advice. It's their risk when they come before us with a formal submission.
Mr.
John?
Chairman, you know, I think that's something that, we can work out, a way to have this work. I think it also might be something worthwhile to have Mr. Falvey there.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask, is Mr. Falvey
Jack, when he comes in,
agreeable to this?
Would that work for you, Jack?
First of all, I mean, I don't represent the group that asked the questions.
No, but you can represent you or something.
Oh, sure, I mean, I'd be pleased to do, but the genesis of this was, you and I had a conversation back in November, and you said, gee,
Yes.
we need input
We
from the
need, we
citizens.
want citizen input.
So
and,
this is citizen input.
Yeah,
What you do with the citizen input is your discretion, it's not mine, I have nothing to do with it.
yeah.
The reason that the questions are all over the place is we didn't edit anything, and I
They-
didn't write them.
As
This
they
is-
came in,
this
they
is what came in.
were compiled, and,
So the untidiness of this.
I just
is
tried to
because-
organize them as best as I could.
yeah, Tim tried to put some organization to it.
The untidiness of the thing is the nature of democracy and people wanting to know. The reasons the questions have come up is because the planning board is going to make a decision on changing the zoning. And I fully recognize that Michael is correct, he can't build this thing without a site plan. But I don't think that the town should rezone a major portion of the town without going into the conceptual consequences. So before you get into rezoning, I mean, it's a chicken and egg thing. Do you understand what rezoning means? And so some of the things that we discussed tonight were right on. It means traffic impact, estimates, but it does mean an impact. And so before you can make a judgment on whether there should be 1 house per acre, 2 houses per acre, 6 houses per acre, somebody's got to look at the overall. And granted, I mean, I agree with him, he can't build a thing until it gets to the site plan, but why should you rezone if you can't come up with some idea of the impact?
Yeah,
Why
I
would you
mean,
rezone first and then deal with the impact later? Can't you look at the impact first before you rezone?
I mean, as we rezoned, as the whole town has been zoned, basically the whole town has been zoned. We haven't looked at traffic or anything. Even looking at probably some of the detail of 28 and what is there for zoning now.
Right.
It's probably possible because of road impacts, they cannot build completely out the way it's zoned. So the same thing would apply here. There's an overall, zoning.
Right.
But when they get down to the detail of putting their site plans together, they get a certain point where they've probably reached capacity, then you can't do any more.
Right.
So that's that would be the way it would work. It's the same as we zone, because tonight we have a rezoning of tax map 15, lot 97.
We've got 3 conceptual rezonings after this.
Yeah, so they're all dealing with rezonings.
Right.
And usually, in most of my experience with the planning board rezonings, the traffic comes in, but traffic technically is not part of the rezoning. You're just saying what can they do here with a list of things that they can do. The only time that traffic really comes into is at the site plan when they have a specific plan before us. Then we say it generates a certain amount of traffic. What's the impact on the highway from that? If the impact is more than what the road capacity can handle, either they can't do anything, or they have to improve the capacity of the roadway.
I think we have to stay at the conceptual level, because that's where we are.
Yeah, it really is, and I mean, we're trying for answers, because I think a good conceptual discussion is hard to get going with a group of people, because the minds are at different levels.
But as soon as you decide to rezone, then it's not conceptual anymore. Then we've changed the law.
Andre?
I guess I agree with Jack to a point where he says that I think the board has to understand what the impacts are gonna be based on whatever master plan is submitted, and I think that's what we're going through. We spent a long time on traffic, but there's other impacts that we have to take a look at. But on the other hand, I think this has to get to beyond the conceptual and into a formal plan, so we have something tangible to measure.
Something to deal with.
Because if we continue with conceptual, then it's gonna keep on morphing, and then we're gonna say, all right, we're gonna try to address that, but then that changes, and then you're gonna try to address that, then that changes. But if you have a formal application, at least it's a item that now we're gonna look at, examine, and do all the very things that I think you're asking us to do in that review of that plan, before the board decides on what the final product is gonna be.
Correct. I guess the idea that we should go and just rezone and then deal with the problems at site plan level is an interesting concept. But the question is, why should we rezone if we don't know what the consequences are? So it's this chicken and egg thing. So
Right.
somewhere we've got to come up with, why should the town rezone? And if they do rezone, the question is, what should that rezoning be? And that's what's on the table, not the traffic impacts specifically, because we can't come up with that. But why should we change our laws? And what are the rough consequences of changing those zoning laws? And I hope that would be the issue. But again, appreciate very much the progress we're making, and it's definitely going in the right direction, and the questions were magnificent from the planning board tonight, and I appreciate the
Yeah,
input
this is
from
a
them.
stepwise process. It's new to us, it's new to the town, and we're just gonna work our way slowly, and we want people to kind of move along together.
A lot of people are rooting for you.
Okay?
Right.
We want to be successful, Jack. That's our aim, so keep the input up.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get to our regular stuff.
Also, we're not doing
This is for a rezoning of tax map 13, lot 96B from AR1 to commercial. It's commercial, I guess no 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Oh, that's to be discussed.
Okay, that's part of the discussion.
Robert Lynch, 9 Ashley Drive. I basically was requesting a rezoning. I kind of stumbled on the fact that it wasn't in fact commercial, and the property is, the parcel is approximately a quarter acre. It's surrounded by commercial property, including my own, and it only has access through my property.
Just for the board's perspective, I've got up on the screen now is the area zoning map. The parcel itself is majority located in the town of Derry. This is the Derry town line here. This is Highwood Cold Storage on Route 28, Rockingham Road. This portion of the lot here, if I go to the aerial photo, it comes up a little bit better. You can see is associated with this site here within the town of Derry. So this triangle piece within the town of Londonderry on our zoning maps is zoned AR1. Wrong thing here. It is currently surrounded by industrial zoning with commercial zoning in the nearby. My understanding is that the applicant here is looking to do an addition, do some work to the site plan that would involve the land that's located in Londonderry, and as such is not permitted because of the zoning today. So that's the question that's in front of the board here today.
Okay, will, Andre, any input?
No, Tim was succinct with that analysis.
Okay, John?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, any questions from the board?
How did it ever get to be AR1?
That's my question, I don't.
It's tiny little
We have the
triangle.
exact same situation across the road. There's actually the parcel where the mini storage facility is. The portion of that parcel in Londonderry is actually zoned residential.
Now, is this piece that's currently AR1, is it part of the lot, or?
Yes, it is.
So there's no lot line adjustment or anything like that? Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me, with all the respect.
Give it to Derry.
Okay, I would say it's safe that the board wouldn't have a problem.
The question I have is more for Mr. Lynch. Exactly what business is going to be taking place on the site?
Just an expanded use.
Which is?
It's a car dealership right now.
Car dealership. So in that case, you probably want to go with a C2, even though it would be surrounded by I2, you do have C2 in that vicinity, and I'd be comfortable with C2 for that small portion of the lot.
Does that work with the zoning of the rest of the lot?
It's whatever the zoning is in Derry.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I have the site plan, it's been approved since 2006.
So
The town
what,
did-
so just for grins, what do you need from the board? Do you need a motion?
Now, we need to actually move forward from this point to an actual rezoning hearing.
Yeah, we'll have to have a public
We
hearing.
just wanted to get a consensus of what the board thought and what it'd be, and it sounds like C2 zoning, if we were to come back with C2 zoning for that particular piece, that the board would be amenable to
Yeah.
seeing that.
So the next step is a public hearing before the planning board. Planning board makes a recommendation to the town council. Town council has a first reading, they have a second reading and public hearing, and then they make their decision at that point.
Okay. I'll coordinate with Mr. Lynch to get him the application and the materials, and we'll get this back to you next month.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. This is one of the easier ones I've had to deal with
Board,
lately.
board all set with that?
Yep.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
that's it, boy, that's it. Thank you. Okay, next we have another conceptual discussion. This is Londonderry Town Garage LLC, potential rezoning of 525 and 527 Mammoth Road.
Just do, again, the brief overview of the area we're talking about. This is in the North Village area of Mammoth Road. This is Wallboard Supply, Crowning Holdings parcel in the industrial district. Believe the current garage facility is located in this small lot off of what's called Coal Pocket Road. There's potential to expand onto the adjacent lots. However, the zoning in this area currently is C1, which does not permit the garage use. So they're here tonight to discuss the potential for rezoning of these parcels with the board.
Okay, that's the rail right-of-way just to the
Yes.
north of that.
And get the pictometry image up here for you.
You have the floor. Just your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jacqueline Phillips, 317 Winding Pond Road. This is my father, Mark Phillips. Same address.
Thank you for having us today.
You're welcome. And just give an idea what you want or would like to do.
Well, basically, at this point, we're pretty limited by the size of our property, and would like to expand into the 527A and possibly 525B or.
I'd like to see C2 to be just continued up to from our lot, from across the street up to us.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, yeah.
So, okay, that's it. Any input, Andre?
No, Tim and I talked about this, and, there is an adjoining C2 zone in that area, and given that it's presently zoned Commercial 1, the jump to Commercial 2, given the abutting lot, which is Industrial 1, doesn't seem a big stretch.
And my only suggestion would be that it actually expand to include not only the 2 vacant lots, but also the lot where the current business is located, to bring it in conformance with the zoning, because right now that's a non-conforming use on that lot. So I would suggest, if we were going to be moving forward with this, that we'd look at all 3 of the parcels instead of just the 2.
That makes sense. John?
I'm good with it.
Board?
I just wonder what's across the street.
Ms. Mary?
I'm sorry. You're starting at the other end?
Oh, no, I was just, figured it would expedite things.
It's commercial too across the road.
Yes.
It's industrial all around it. As Dana said, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, well, I'll go down the board in case anyone has a, Tom?
No, I'm
Okay,
fine.
Rick?
Fine.
Dana?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, Chuck?
I'm fine.
Mary?
I'm fine, but I just wondered, is that a single-family home behind you?
What single family?
Behind me, could you point, please? I'm sorry.
Right there.
On Hall Road?
On Hall Road. Yeah, it's,
I think that's, but it's C1,
Up there.
isn't it?
On Hall,
Where-
we're pointing at Hall Road?
right, it's actually not visible.
Right there, yeah, there's a house
Yep.
there, isn't there?
There's a house there, it's C1, and there,
Well, no, not,
and you can see the,
not right
if
there,
you look,
across the road.
across Hall Street, right?
Yeah.
Right, but you see
The
where the.
lots
ro-
on Hall
there-
Road are all zoned agricultural residential. They are separated by the industrially zoned piece that is the wallboard supply parcel.
Right.
And there's the rail trail in between them?
Yeah.
That's on the
Oh, yeah, the rail
opposite
strip
side.
is
lot
on the
here.
north,
Yeah.
and down south is a right-of-way
There's a
for
right-of-way on the
PSNH.
south, yeah.
That right-of-way there, and then it's all wooded, that whole V between the property and to any residential.
Here's,
Which we would prefer to keep.
so this right
Right.
here, this strip here is currently zoned industrial. This is all zoned industrial. This is all commercial on this side, and this is currently C1.
I don't have a problem with it, thank you.
I don't have a problem with them going forward.
No, no issue.
No problem.
Yeah, they're both.
Yep, makes sense, so.
Thank you very much.
Likewise, I'll
Appreciate it.
coordinate with them to get the rezoning application, and we'll move forward with
Yep,
that next
so-
month as well.
Yeah, so it'll be a public hearing before us. We make a recommendation to the town council. Town council has actually 2 readings on it. The first reading is an introduction. The second reading is the important one because that's what they have the public hearing on it, and they make the final decision.
Well, thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you
You're
guys.
welcome.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Good luck with the Woodmont stuff.
Well, keep coming to the
That's,
meetings.
that's
Free to join us monthly for those.
That's our toughest thing. Okay, next conceptual discussion is Heritage Truck and Automotive, potential development of tax map 15, lot 97, and potential rezoning. And name and
Mr. Chair, Todd Connors from Long Beach Development, here representing Heritage Truck.
new company now?
New company I'm working for, yeah. Things change, you know how it is.
Same people, but same company, new company name.
That's right.
Same problems?
Now we're working for somebody now, so they're their problems.
Rough crowd.
Ah, yeah, I know. Welcome back, right?
Yeah, you've been tied.
I have tonight in front of you this agenda item and also the next agenda item. This parcel of land is located up on Jacks Bridge Road. It's across from the Penske Automotive or Penske Trucking. You might be familiar with that location. Parcel is currently zoned AR1, and we are here tonight to show you some conceptual site plans and subdivision plans, get some feedback on that, and then as a follow-up to that, hold a rezoning hearing to rezone the parcel. We understand, of course, that we need to go to town council for that action, but we understand also that it would start here with this board. I think what I'd like to do is just kind of run you through our plans for the property and what we're hoping to get out of this. Hey, Tim, would you mind showing the subdivision plan?
Yep, subdivision, yep.
That's the entire parcel as it exists today, and it's shown as two separate parcels there. The entire parcel is 8.5 acres, and it does have a small house over on Clark Road, which is on the lower left side of the plan. We have 660 feet of frontage, excuse me, on Jack's Bridge Road, which is on the top of the plan. What we would like to do to develop the parcel is to split it in the two pieces that you see there. Our site plan would be proposed on the right-hand side parcel, the smaller of the two, just shy of 3 acres. And we would leave the larger parcel on the left rezoned to Industrial 1 with the house on it until such a time as we had a development proposal. There's the potential that Heritage Truck would like to expand onto that parcel as time goes by. There's also the potential that we would sell it to another industrial-type user. I think the house would remain until something like that happened.
So Heritage currently owns that?
They do not currently own it. It's owned by the Colte family. Heritage Truck has a contract to purchase the land. And basically what we're trying to do tonight is just kick off with a little conceptual, what we would like to do to develop the project. Tim, would you mind switching? Thank you. This is the smaller of the two parcels, and we drew a fairly basic concept here. Heritage Truck is an existing business in the town of Londonderry. They've been here for about 15 years. Their location is at 226 Rockingham Road. I'm sure you're familiar with Herald Square, right across from the mobile station. They're in the same building as Herald Square. You've probably seen some of the trucks they work on parked out in the front. Heritage Truck is a truck and automotive repair facility. And what they do is they do all your normal repairs. They also have a large auto body area. Essentially, they have the expertise and the equipment to work on large vehicles. So they do a lot of repainting of tractor trailers, and the tractors, the trailers, and large trucks, box trucks and things like that. They're finding themselves coming up on the end of the lease a year from now, and they would like to expand the business. They would also like to stay in the general proximity of Londonderry that they're in, and they found this parcel of land up on Jack's Bridge Road. It seems like a pretty good fit for them, given the fact that a lot of their business is trucking related. We met with staff, and we did determine that the use that Heritage Truck would fall into is actually an I-2 use. All of the surrounding land, with the exception of 2 residential parcels on the north, the left side of this parcel, are zoned I-1. So we are proposing to rezone the parcel I-1 so that it's consistent with the neighborhood, and we will also be making a stop at the Zoning Board of Adjustment to get to attempt to get a use variance so that Heritage Truck as an I-2 use could go on the smaller of the 2 parcels. The site plan itself shows a fairly good-sized building. It's approximately 22,000 square feet in size. Essentially, it's a building that's divided with a small office space up front and then several left to right bays. Essentially, there would be at-grade doors on both sides of the building. That would give them the ability to pull a large tractor trailer fully into the building where they would do sandblasting, painting, truck repair, all that kind of thing. We've showed the general layout of how the site might develop, and you can see what we're trying to accomplish outside of the building is enough parking for visitors, suppliers, employees, as well as a handful of truck parking spaces. We have some that would accommodate a trailer-sized vehicle. We have some that would accommodate a box truck-sized vehicle, a tow truck-sized vehicle. There's a small building on the lower right corner of that plan, and we have actually done a little bit more work on the plan after following our application, and we actually think we're more inclined to expand or lengthen the big building and get rid of the smaller one. The smaller building on that plan was to hold the sandblasting operation, but as it turns out, it's much easier for us to put it inside the building in a bay, as opposed to have a separate structure. So the plan itself is still kind of evolving. What we were hoping to do tonight is just get some general feedback from the board, let you know what we're working on, and also move forward with our rezoning request. So that's about all I have for a presentation. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, take any of your feedback, and whenever it's appropriate, I can move forward with the rezoning request, which is your next agenda item.
Okay, Andre?
I know you've heard this from me before, but I guess anytime you can keep an existing business in Londonderry and it wants to expand in Londonderry, I think that's a good thing. And when the owner approached us about his desire to do so, obviously we wanted to work with him, and obviously this is an area that we wanted that the master plan encourages to be industrial zone and industrial uses within it. As you remember, Penske located their facility, which is across the street there. But it's not an automotive repair business, but it is an automotive rental business over there. And obviously, another neighbor to the north, it would be Harvey Industries, and to the south is Coca-Cola. So the use that they're proposing there, I think, would fit. I understand that the I-2 zoning would be the preferred zoning in that area, and but their option is to go with I-1 in hopes of achieving a variance. But I guess if they're unsuccessful at the ZBA, I guess the question I would have to the board, would the board be comfortable with an I-2 zoning in that area? I mean, yeah, I-2 zoning in that area.
I'll get to that as well.
Tim will add to that, so.
In my conversations with Todd and with the applicant, ultimately, I'd love to be able to recommend I-2 on this particular parcel. However, given the fact that a rezoning is for the parcel, not for the specific user, especially now that when we get to the actual hearing, I'm going to discuss some direction we've received from legal counsel regarding conditions on rezonings. The potential for other uses that are I-2 in nature, I don't think are compatible with this particular area, which is why I suggested to Todd that they look at the I-1 zoning, which is clearly compatible with the master plan for this particular area, was specifically outlined in the 04 master plan. And take their chances with the variance, because I do believe there's enough similarity for the use that we're proposing specifically here that can be conditioned by the zoning board specific to that particular use, rather than opening up the town to a variety of other potential I-2 uses that may be too intense for this location.
And what I was suggesting, though, is to ask the board whether or not I-2 zoning would be entertained. It wasn't a condition. I'm familiar with what Art's opinion is with regard to condition zoning, and that has changed since from his counterpart at the same law firm. But you recommend that if you're going to rezone something, just rezone it, because that's in the best interest of the community, as opposed to conditionally rezone it based on the proposal before you. But again, it's just one of those things that questions that I just want to put out there, because it did come up. But Tim's absolutely right. Once you zone something I-2, it's I-2.
Regardless of who's there. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll save the rest of my comments when we do the hearing.
Okay, John?
Todd, you and I had a discussion as far as tying into the municipal sewer, or it's private sewer out there. Any luck with that?
John, we've started to follow up on that, but we don't have any update for you. It would be our hope and our intention to tie into the private sewer that's up there. However, we realize we have to negotiate a use agreement, and we have not made very much progress in that regard.
So at this stage, it's still on-site septic?
At this stage, we would still do an on-site septic. However, it is our preference to connect to that sewer.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, we'll do the board. Chris?
No questions.
Tom?
No, all set.
Rick?
Nothing further. I'm all set.
I just want to say I appreciate that you are looking for another place in Londonderry. Thank you.
The problem I have is not with the site where we're looking at putting that business, but the other parcel, if we split that, if we subdivide that site and having the zoning change go over to having frontage on Clark Road.
Well,
it has frontage.
No, but with an industrial zone right now, it's AR1 on Clark Road with the house.
Yeah, it's going to be problematic, because I think Coke had been in and I know they're gonna be expanding out also onto Clark Road.
I
But-
think
but-
we had some agreement with them that they wouldn't put access on Clark Road, or it'd be.
And again, that wasn't at the rezoning level, that's at the site plan level.
Right.
And I would caution again, and I'll get into this with the rezoning hearing, but we don't want to get into the discussion of conditions on rezonings. It's no longer recommended by our legal counsel.
Yep, so my concern is having the AR1 on Clark Road converted over to industrial zoning.
Yeah.
Because the road's obviously not designed to handle commercial traffic, and
I mean, not at this point, it'd be at that site plan stage that
Right.
we probably have to deal with that. But it's an area that's gonna grow long-term industrially anyway. And as it's growing, there's gonna be a budding residential and industrial area. This will be, we have it up in the village, we have it on Auburn Road, we have it on West Road, so it's,
And this parcel should actually be familiar to the board. This was conditionally rezoned previously to I-1 with conditions that were never met. Additionally, the lot just to the north of this was conditionally rezoned to I-1 with conditions that were never met. We, as staff at the time, had suggested to the planning board that the board exercise their authority to rezone all three of these parcels in the triangle, as was recommended in the master plan, to I-1. However, at that time, the board determined that they did not want to force rezoning onto property owners who were not interested, so.
but getting back to the conditional aspects of it, I just can't support having industrial property on Clark Road if Clark Road was chosen to be their method of accessing that property. So I guess.
We already have.
I think you already have.
We already have it.
Yeah, we do have that, but I think that with Coca-Cola, I think they just agreed that all the access would be via the out of the way. And you can almost be assured that if that project, even if they were subdivided and rezoned under I-1, you'll have a recommendation from staff that the access be off of Jacksonville Road.
Yeah.
Because that's the same agreement that we have with the Harvey Industry, that there's a gate there, so they always use the Jacksonville Road, and we would be consistent with that.
yes.
But then we're talking the conditions again.
No, what I'm saying is that, I'm not saying the conditions at the rezoning area, I'm just saying if that were to come in before a site plan, our recommendation would be for that to access.
Or even at when you subdivide the parcel, you can
Yeah.
set up a condition on that plan for the subdivision that future industrial use shall be accessed from Jacksbridge Road.
And what Tim was getting is that just don't make the conditions at the
On the
rezoning component of it, make it at the subdivision component of this development.
Okay, so you're assuring me that we can put conditions on
You absolutely
on the
can put
site
that
plans
condition.
that they
Board
don't
is not
access
restricted from conditions
Clark
from
Road.
subdivisions or site plans.
Mr. Chair, if I may add,
Yes.
I don't think we would be opposed to a condition on the subdivision approval that industrial use of that second parcel be off of Jacksbridge Road. We want it rezoned I-1 right now so that as we expand our business or as we find someone suitable to locate next to us, the parcel's already zoned industrial. It's going to be developed industrial, and we just assume to get that done right now. So I think we'd be more than comfortable with a condition like that.
Yeah, it's just such a nice, quiet road up there. That,
Right. We'd have no interest in Clark Road.
change.
No, yeah, and that's why every
Yeah,
effort
you
is
don't,
made.
but the next owner may.
Well, the only reason I say that is Jacksbridge Road is a recently improved road.
Sure.
We have a signalized intersection on 28. Given the choice of Clark or Jacksbridge, it's really no-brainer for industrial traffic.
I understand, but,
Yep. Point taken.
All set, Lynn? Okay, Lisa? John? Okay. I think the consensus is for, rezoning.
Move forward to the next item.
I-1, yes. So, I guess, any questions of us before we hit the public hearing?
Nope, I think if you had any other feedback on the layout, we would be happy to entertain it, but it sounds like everybody had a chance to comment, so we're good. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to our next item, which is a public hearing for the rezoning of tax map 15, lot 97, from AR1 to I1, industrial 1.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
No, we haven't had the hearing yet.
Oh, we haven't had,
Yeah.
so what are we doing?
So,
We're making it until we have a
so what I'm going to do is, Tim will
That we have a hearing?
speak to us first.
We just did the conceptual. Unless Todd has anything additional to add he wants to go through in terms of
No, as
rezoning.
quick as you want to make the motion.
In your packet, you'll find a recommendation memo dated tonight for myself. I'll go through it briefly. Again, the applicant is requesting the rezoning of the above referenced lot from AR1 to I1. Parcel is located on Jacks Bridge and Clark Road, as we've been showing on the map and the pictures below. As was presented to the planning board earlier tonight in the conceptual discussion, the applicant is seeking to develop the motor vehicle repair facility and subdivide the property. The particular use proposed is not a permitted use in the I1 district and would require a variance in order to be constructed. Staff has, this use is not, this use is permitted in the I2 district. However, the applicant is aware that staff would not likely support I2 zoning, given the surrounding zoning of I1 and AR1 and the other types of I2 uses which would not be compatible for this area. Of note to the planning board, town's legal counsel has advised that making conditional rezoning recommendations to the town council is not advisable. From this point forward, staff will no longer recommend that rezonings be recommended to the council with conditions, but rather, as stated by legal counsel, when considering the rezoning of a property, the consideration should be independent of any specific plan. The 2004 master plan does call for the rezoning of this area of the triangle of properties along the stretch of Clark and Jacks Bridge Roads to be rezoned to I1. This property and the property to the north were both conditionally rezoned by the town council in years past. However, these rezonings never took effect as the conditions attached to them were never completed. Staff recommendation in summary, the rezoning is consistent with the master plan and the surrounding land uses and area zoning. As such, we recommend that the planning board recommend this rezoning from AR1 to I1 to the town council.
So moved.
You gotta go to the public.
Okay, hold it. Any questions from the board? Anyone from the public? Any abutters? Any with questions, comments, concerns about the rezoning? Seeing none.
Now we can take it.
So
I'll
moved.
bring it back to the board. So moved by Mary.
Second.
Second by Dana. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative.
Thank you.
And the planning board will make a recommendation to the town council for adoption of this rezoning.
Great, thanks a lot, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, any other business to come before the planning board?
motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn, and a second by Rick. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, okay, we're adjourned.